Let's start out with why would we would bother to want to even do this, go to all this trouble. So okay, this is N1MM running right now, and it's set up as if we were doing the salmon run, which is coming up shortly. Over here where my pointer is the telnet window, which we'll get into on how to set that up. So that's the whole reason for doing this tonight, is to show you how to set up the telnet window either for N1MM or N3FJP or just about any other logging program that you might use. Then over here, I also have a band map, and I've got a radio hooked up, which shows that I'm connected to it here. And like I said, I'm set up for the salmon run, Washington QSO party up here. And I set it so I could either do CW or phone. You can operate two ways in a contest or doing DX. You can either have the satisfaction of turning the dial yourself and hunting for stations, or you can have people spot for you where other stations are, and you can just go around and collect them. Usually a lot faster than tuning the dial yourself, but the choice is up to you. So I'll demonstrate this in N1MM. If you hold down the control and the up arrow, it will take you to one of the station that's been spotted. And in this case, it was K4JPN was spotted. And it changed because I'm interfaced to my radio, it changed the frequency of my radio. And there is where he was. He's not on there anymore. I have it set for pretty long. And I can just keep going up, trying to find somebody that's spotted. The CE3EHT, that's not Italy, Chile. And it's red because it would be a multiplier. Then above that at 14044 K10V. So I hold the control down, I hit the up arrow. I can hear that one. Perhaps you can too. So that's what we're heading for. And I will show you how to set these things up after we figure out how to set up VE7CC User. Let's start with how to get VE7CC. So here's my browser. You can use any of them that you want to. And if you just type in VE7CC User, then this is what comes up. So you click on VE7CC DX cluster. And the first one that comes up, or the first one that's visible, is VE7CC cluster. That's not the one you want. You want CC User. Then you scroll down a little bit. Then over here is download links at bottom of the page. So we click on that and it goes down to the bottom of the page. And then on one of my computers, this worked great. On this one, it didn't work so good. We'll see. But here it says download CC full user, full version. And in Chrome, I should be getting some symbols up here, but I'm not. So it's not downloading it. And I don't quite understand why, but there's a way to get around that. So if I go back to this download CC user, right click on it, and then copy link address, and up here it says link copied. Then I go to another page and paste that in up here with a control V and hit the enter. Now then, it gives me this message, it being Chrome, gives me this message, insecure download blocked. Well, that's probably because it doesn't get downloaded very often, so it hadn't gone through all the security. So if you type, or if you choose keep, it will download it anyway. And I've downloaded this already, and so that's why there's a 1 there. And it says it's done. Then however you would normally get to to your download page, you can do that. But what I prefer to do is I'll close the browser, come down, open the Windows Explorer, and go to Downloads. And here's VE7CC zip. So you click on it, and there's all the stuff that's in the zip file. And then you extract all, and it will do that, but I've already done it, so I'm not going to do it again. And here's that file with all those things extracted. Okay, so now then, set up exe. And do we want to allow this to happen? Yes, we do. Welcome to the installation. And you can read all that, but what we do is okay. And then you want to put this in either C or any other drive that you have, VE7CC. Well, I already have one of those, so I'm going to change the directory and go to a VE7CC demo there. Now it's going to install it in VE7CC demo, but you would do it in VE7CC. And then this is the button that you push, which if you read this, it tells you that, but it isn't real clear to begin with. So I push that, and we'll just let it do all that stuff. So continue. And then this says that there's a newer one currently on the system. Do you want to keep it? Yes, that in my book is the safest thing to do. So you just say yes all the time. And now then it says VE7CC setup was completed successfully. Now we got to navigate to where we stored it. So here's my C drive, and down here's VE7CC demo. And then this is the file that you want to start, VE7CC, where you stored it, which would be in yours, but without the demo or wherever you happen to store it. So you double click on it, and up this comes, and probably yours will say VE7CC up here. First thing we ought to do is do some configuration. So let's go to configure and then user info. And mine's already filled out. And if you read down here, it says you got to fill in the red ones. So you put in your call sign, mine is K7TQ, name Randy, GMT offset, and your QTH Idaho is good enough. Those are all that you have to do, but if you want directions in the DX spots, you need to fill out some more stuff. My grid square is DM16MR. I live in Moscow, Idaho. And the cluster that I prefer to use is WS7I. That's, in my opinion, is the best one to use because it's in the Spokane area, and a lot of the people in SDXA use WS7I, but you can use whichever one you want. But I recommend WS7I. So you type that in, and then you put in your latitude. Moscow's at 4645 north and 11659 west. Spokane will be a little farther north and a little farther west. Then you say OK. Then the next thing we want to do is configure what cluster we want to use. So this says select telnet cluster, and you got to pick a node. The way VE7CC comes set up, or the installation, it doesn't have WS7I, but this must have picked it up from before. So if you want to put in WS7I, you type in WS7I, and then you hit add, and then you need to type in this address, ws7i.ewarg.org, and you want to use port 7300. And then you say apply, and then you can exit that. And then when you've done that, then WS7I will appear up here, up here, and you hit connect. And it said, hello, Randy. let's go down here to settings. Now in all these tabs, there's usually two things, two buttons, and ask the cluster, and that the mouse over says press this button to find your current settings, or tell the cluster, press this to update your settings at the cluster. So this program is an interface to the cluster. So the stuff that you do here is stored here, but it's also stored at the cluster. So you should find out what the cluster thinks you have. So I'm going to ask the cluster, and I get a bunch of stuff up here that I don't have any idea what it means, but it flies by. And now here's what was checked. These are the things that I recommend that you should check. DX spots. I think normally this Bob equals announcements. I don't check it. State I think is useful, and WWV I think is useful. The BOB was checked when I started this, so I just leave it, and the same with WCY. And then I like the self also, and then I make sure that skimmer and this SK own means it shows your own spots, so check those. And then you tell the cluster. Then on the initial installation, this will come up, update the program. And this ought to work. It's worked several times when I've tried this, so I'll do it. So update the program. Download now. It says you may continue using CC User while downloading. So download now. Then it tells you to close CC User and then press continue. So we'll go over here and close it. Do you really want to end it? Yes or okay. And now then continue. And this happens quite quickly, and it brings the program back up again. Then let me scroll down in my notes a little bit. Okay, now let's go back to the configuration. And first one I think that you ought to look at is bands. This is bands that we don't want to see. I don't have an antenna for 160, so excuse me, there's no point in me seeing 160 spots. Same with 60 meters. And I don't have a 6, a 4, a 2, a 1, or 70 or a 75. So these are the ones that I don't want. So I've checked those. So yours might be different, but just get the ones that you want. So you reject the ones that you don't want, and you hit the apply. Then the next thing we want to do is let's configure what the DX display format looks like. There's lots of ways to do this, to see stuff, but I think this is a good starting point. Some of these are always on, like the spotter and the frequency and the DX call and the time. So you don't have a choice for those. So those are good. I think it's useful to see the originator's state or province, the person who made the spot or the RBN that made the spot. It's useful to know where that spotter is located. So I check that one. I like to see the date and I like to see the comments. And then the default, I believe, is expanded. So that's the one that I choose and hit the apply. It says to reformat the old ones. You have to erase it, all of them. Okay, we'll do that. And then you exit this. So let's ask the cluster again. Okay, the ones that I like are DX spots, state, WWV, and then BOB and WCY, skimmer and own. And those are fine, but we'll tell the cluster anyway. Now then, let's go over to the country tab and let's ask the cluster what it thinks we want to see. And on the first installation, the initial install, you will see more than just the United States and Canada. But for most contests, and particularly I would say for the salmon run, what you'd want to see is from the US, so check the K, and Canada, the VE. And then over here, that tells you that's 2 in North America. That just sort of tells you. So you check those and you tell the cluster. So now it's all set. Then the state. And here, W1 through W0 and the VEs. And you can click any of those and then that will, any of the call sign letters, and it will check all of those in there. But we don't want to, I don't want to see W5, so yeah, I'll uncheck them. That was just to show you how it's done. You can get all the W7s, but in my opinion, the problem with that is Arizona is so much farther south of us that they hear a lot of stuff that we do not. So you're going to hear, you're going to see a lot of spots from Arizona stations that you're not going to be able to hear. So I unchecked that. There either aren't any or there are extremely few RBNs in Idaho, so I unchecked that one. Although if you're after sideband ones, you might want to leave it checked. Montana, same story. Nevada, same story. Wyoming, Utah, one of the best RBNs or cluster or reverse beacon network or skimmers is WA7LNW in far southern Utah. But again, he's so far south, he hears a lot of stuff that we do not. So if for CW and for RTTY, I prefer just Oregon and Washington and BC because BC is VE7CC and most all of the Oregon and most all the Washington ones are either in the Seattle or Portland area, and the BC ones are in Vancouver. So they hear about what we hear also. Then we tell the cluster. Let's go on to bands. This block of bands is basically the CW portion. This block is basically the RTTY portion, and this block is basically the sideband portion. So if you think of them in those terms, you can keep them straight. It's true that during the RTTY contests, many of the RTTY stations will drift down into what you might consider the CW portion. But think of this as CW, RTTY, and sideband. Again, here's the ask and the tell. So let's ask the cluster what it thinks. And the cluster likes to think in terms of reject. That's why this reject has a dot by it. But it's easier for people to think in what is it that you want. So you can go to check the pass one. And let's say we're doing the salmon run. And like I showed before, we're going to do both CW and phones, so sideband. So what we want is we're in the pass, so we want 80 meter CW, 40 meter CW. We don't need 30 meter. We want 20. We don't need 17. We want 15. We don't need 12. And we want 10. And then in the RTTY, since we're only doing sideband and CW in this example, we don't want any of those. So we don't want those. So we uncheck those. And then over here, we want 80 meters and we want 40 and we want 20. We don't want 17. We want 15. We don't want 12. And we do want 10. So now then we tell the cluster. And it answers back in reject. So now you got to shift your thinking. So what it says is you don't want 30, you don't want 17, you don't want 12, you don't want any of the RTTY, and same thing over here in the sideband, which you don't want 17, nor do you want 12. So now we're all set up for the bands that we want to filter or that we want to look at. Now then over here is where the payoff is. This is the DX. And they're color coded by bands, and over here are the color codes. and then this shows how many were spotted. Uh, so the most recent one, for example, is this N6KIX, and it was spotted by K2PO/7, and then it has this pound sign after it. These up here don't have pound signs. If there's a pound sign, that means it's an RBN, the reverse beacon network, or the skimmer. So that's a machine spotted one. All of these are human spotted ones. So here, case or N7EKD, who lives in Oregon, spotted a ZL24UM, a New Zealand station on 7147. This is the time that it happened. I can't get my mouse to stay in the same place, but 1412 Zulu on the 15th, and heard good copy. I think that's what HRD means. Then there he spotted another one down here, N7GX. So this is a bunch of 40-meter ones, and then these are 20-meter ones. There's the PJ7K that you were thinking about, Murph. At least I think that was the call sign you were looking for. You can set these up to display all sorts of different things. This is an easy one to remember, easy one to understand. And again, if there's not a pound, not a number sign after it, that means a human spotted them. If there's a pound sign after it, that means the reverse beacon network spotted it. The RBN will spot CW and it will spot RIDI, but it will not spot sideband. So when you're in a sideband contest, it's up to the operators to to spot people. And most people spot stations after they've worked them, but you can choose however you want to do that. Down here at the bottom, there's a clear all, so you can get rid of all of them, and then just the new ones will come in. I probably shouldn't have cleared them out now because there's not a lot of activity right now, but you can't see much. So that's the quick and dirty way to set up VE7CC User. Two other things worth mentioning. Always make sure that this DX is checked and skimmer is checked. If you're just doing sideband, probably don't need to see the skimmer, although the skimmer does tell you where things are open to. A couple other useful ones. Here's the WWV, and if you go over here and you get 5 spots, so this tells you on 16th of September at 0 Zulu, which is 5 o'clock right now our time, the solar flux was 130, the A was 48, which is pretty high, and the K is 4, which isn't all that wonderful. Earlier today, that was a 7. Very hard to copy anything when the K is up around 7, but that's a worthwhile thing to look at. And then one other one that you might want to look at every once in a while is the login message. Set skimmer, set CW, set RIDI, unset to disable. So that tells you, well, you would type unset skimmer if you don't want to see the skimmer, although there's buttons to do it on here. Okay, then you can either disconnect or you can just hit the X to get out of it. Do you really want to end this program? Yes, I do. And it will close on its own. I'm going to go back over to my other workspace. And let's start with a very simple interface to N1MM. So all we have here is the entry window and the log window. So you click on the window, and then you go down here to Telnet. And I have mine set for automatic, which I probably shouldn't have done it that way. In clusters is where you find it. And the first time around, WS7i won't be in your favorites list. So you type edit favorites. and then you type in this block down here, which wouldn't have initially WS7I. You type in WS7I in that space, and then over here, ws7i.ewarg.org, and it's not so easy to see, but there's the colon that I mentioned, and then 7300, and then hit OK. And now I'm going to open up this window a little bit more. So once WS7I is there, then it will start up that way. Some options: log in with K7TQ. That's how I got it, so I didn't have to hit the K7TQ. I'm going to take that out and show you what it looks like without that. Uncheck this login automatically, and then show telnet buttons. That's a worthwhile one to have. This isn't a lesson in how to use N1MM, but these are some worthwhile things to know. So let's close that, and I'll show you this again. Hopefully it'll be more like it would come up for you. So here, this is now WS7I, and because I didn't log in automatically, I have to push this reconnect. Please enter your call. So go up here to where it says type, and type in K7TQ, and then, or you type in your call sign, don't type in mine. When I typed in K7TQ, I should have hit just the enter key, not the reconnect, because it was already connected. So there it said, hello, Randy. And now it's waiting for spots to come. And because there's not much going on at 8 o'clock, there will be 8 o'clock our time, there'll be a lot of CW spots, but there aren't any right now. Well, there's one. So next thing you do is go over here to the entry window and choose the window and open the band map. Right here it says 14024. So, and our radio is set at 14044. So you hold the control down and you hit the down arrow, and it took us, these are some leftover spots, AE5ES. I don't hear him. And that's all there are. There's that one again. But this is the reason for doing this, and this is a quick setup on how you do it for in N1MM, and how you set up VE7CC User, which again is just an interface to the cluster. And not everybody uses N1MM.
Okay, I'll show you how to set it up with N3FJP. And something I wanted to mention, that in both N1MM and N3FJP, you can set it up, some of the filtering in the program, but you're far better to set it up at the VE7CC cluster, because that way it does all of the filtering, not your local computer, which helps your computer run faster. Set it up in N3FJP. There you hit setup and then spotting, and it comes up to this page right here. And over on this side, you want to check telnet host as opposed to LAN relay. So you check that. Then you set up the telnet host, and here's that address. And by the way, I see I got a mistake there. Should have been a
period,
not a slant. And but it's ws7i.ewarg period org, and then it's going to ask you, the port, and that's where the 7300 comes, right there under port. Then you'll put your login, and I happen to use my call with 1, and then show DX, which this is the default in N3FJP. Then this determines how you do it. And when you're configuring, you have to have enable DX spotting off. Do you want it to auto reconnect? I do. And I don't use any of it on the basic form. I only use the large form and the band map. But the default is that that would be set at 12%. So you can set it how you want. In a contest, I always check to show the band map at startup, and I use show the large form on another monitor. But that's just, you set those how you want. Here you pick the continents you want displayed. This tells you if you want any auto alerts. So, normally if I need the spot and I'm just not in a contest, I have it beep if somebody spotted that I need. And it looks at my logbook and tells me what I need. Then you hit, right here, this more filtering. When you hit that, you get this menu. And you can check it to only display dots in your continent, your continent or your country. But if I've set up VE7CC, I put no filtering. That way all the filtering is done at the spotting program. And the band map is exactly the same in both programs. It comes up on the side and you can move up and down the band map. And that's a quick way, especially in a contest. And then I use a large spotting window and on another monitor. So, it's going to show me all of the details, including where I put my rotator. Okay, under settings, okay, we go down to DX spotting, configure. Okay, that brings this up. I have to uncheck enable. Now I hit this. I can type in now the window right here. You can just type in and it will add it. And then it will remember it from then on.
Okay. One of the big things to remember, that takeaway is if you're on sideband, you got to spot them. Somebody has to spot them for you. The RBN won't do that for you. And that'll be particularly important this weekend in the salmon run.
I think I'm going to reemphasize again too, anything that you can have filtered at the VE7CC site, it's much faster than if you're editing it on your computer.